Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session of Welcome Week. I'm Yasmin Khan. I'm a senior tutor at Kellogg, and I might see you at some of the other sessions. I'm a historian, and it's my pleasure to be chairing this event with the president of Kellogg, Professor Jonathan Michie. And I'm going to wait for a second. I can see more people popping up in the all the time as I'm speaking, so we'll go a bit slowly to start, just to make sure that everybody's here and joining us. Just a reminder that we are recording this session. I need to let you know that. And we're going to chat. Jonathan and I are going to talk for about 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions, and you can either raise your hand, or probably easiest to just put that in the meeting chat, and I will ask Jonathan your question, unless you want to pop up and say hello on screen, in which case you're very welcome to do so. So it's my great pleasure to introduce the president to you. Professor Jonathan Michie holds the joint posts of Director of the Department for Continuing Education and also President of Kellogg College, and is Professor of Innovation and Knowledge Exchange at the University of Oxford. And Jonathan's had a very varied career, including starting out as an undergraduate at Oxford, in studying PPE, but also working in Cambridge, in London, in Birmingham, at the EU for a stint, and has published widely on subjects to do with his field as an economist, around globalization, mutuality, governance of football as well, I believe. So thanks for joining us, Jonathan, and it will be interesting to talk further about your role at Kellogg. Now, one of the things when people join Oxford is that there's heads of houses, and this is a really unfamiliar term to people who've not come through the Oxford system. And sometimes they're called wardens, principals, presidents, and there's all this different terminology. But could you just tell us what your role as president is at Kellogg? What being president actually means for people who kind of new to the Oxford College system?
Yes, hello everybody, I'm Jonathan, as Yasmin has said. It's probably a big mistake to try and make a joke online, but in terms of the different terms used for heads of house, presidents, wardens, principals and so on, the joke is about the collective noun. What's the collective noun for a head of house? And it's said to be a lack of principles. But anyway, we're not... for some reason, Kellogg chose president. Most of the old colleges are called master, which has obviously got the slight gender implication to it. And really, I guess the role of the head of house is to make sure that you, the students, all get the very best Oxford experience and remain active members of the college for life. As students first, and then as alumni subsequently, and really then to make sure that the college continues to develop, grow, improve year after year in terms of the activities we put on, academic, cultural, social, sporting, etc., and the positive impact we attempt to have on the world. So, Yasmin, I'd say briefly, that's well, apart from the fact the buck stops with me. So any questions, problems, suggestions at any time, you know where I am. Jonathan.Michie at Kellogg, so feel free to get in touch.
I mean, it also seems to involve eating rather a lot, Jonathan, being president. And are you're often seen at lunch and at dinners and at guest night dinners. And I wondered where students might see you. I mean, obviously in a normal year, we'd see you in the dining room, but how else do you encounter students in your sort of day-to-day life as president?
Yes, no, absolutely. It's unfortunately slightly strange times now, because ordinarily it would be just wandering around the college, as you say, in lunch and dinner, but also in the hub house and cafe and common room, just bumping into people there, and then at the events, seminars, talks, and so on, which are both things the college puts on, but things that the students put on as well. The students are, you are always very good at putting on a whole range of fascinating events, and kindly invite the fellows along too. So it's during those sort of events that we meet. So, I mean, top priority for the senior tutor Yasmin and I is to make sure that we recreate as much of that virtually for those of you who aren't physically in college, as well as trying to make sure that we can meet you in a socially distanced, safe way in college itself.
Yeah, that's worth saying. I mean, if people have ideas for things that can be run online, then do feel free to contact myself or Jonathan. And the MCR has played a great role in putting on some of this Welcome Week's events, a lot of this Welcome Week's events. But also, if there are other things that people have ideas about putting on, you can also come to us and talk to us about those. I mean, you've been at Kellogg now well over 10 years, Jonathan. I don't know. So I wonder what changes you've seen, because obviously we're a young college and we're a growing college and a developing college. And one of the things I find really enjoyable about being at Kellogg is it still feels like a place which is in formation and it's still being developed and there's new things coming along. So what have been some of the highlights over the years seeing the college develop?
Yeah, you're right. So when I was as a student, I was at Balliol College, and I hasten to add that I couldn't have been at Kellogg because, well, firstly, Kellogg's a graduate-only college, but also in my day, Kellogg didn't exist. So I went to Balliol, which is one of the three colleges that claim to be the oldest, and I'm now at Kellogg, which is one of the three colleges that claim to be the youngest. The university is just in the process of forming a new graduate college, although they don't have any students yet. So yeah, we've grown and developed in every way, really. The number of students, the number of alumni, the size of our campus, and so on. And one of the core sort of missions and purposes of the creation of Kellogg College in the first place and our continued development is to ensure that the very best students from around the world are able to study at Oxford, even if for some reason they're not able to be full-time residential students in Oxford. So most of our students indeed are carrying on with other responsibilities, other activities, whether it's work or caring or anything else, and studying on a part-time basis. And so most of our students are carrying on living and working or caring around the globe. So actually, one sort of silver lining of the challenge that we all collectively face this coming term and academic year, one of the silver linings is even in normal times when we would be in college and bumping into each other over coffee and so on, even then, most Kellogg students at any one time would be in Australia or Peru or Norway or wherever they happen to live and work. And so this has given us an added impetus, if you like, to make sure that we're in constant contact with all our students, not just those who are in Oxford. And then, of course, that segues nicely into our alumni body, of whom you will all be members in a few years' time. So the big changes at Kellogg have been just continued success after success and growth. And there was already an increased feeling among the college that we must make sure we're in constant contact with our students around the world, with the added bonus then being in contact with the alumni. And this year, I think, gives us a real opportunity to make a step forward in that, so that these, for example, this Welcome Week is accessible to everybody globally. And as the months go on, hopefully we'll get expert at hybrid events where we can have events socially distanced in college, but also beamed interactively worldwide, hopefully, where questions can be fed back in from those who aren't in Oxford.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think having a mix is the ideal thing, and having more things move to online, I think is possibly, I hope, beneficial for many of our part-time students who are all around the world. I mean, another thing I've seen changing at Kellogg, and perhaps it relates to that, but is the commitment to environmentalism and to not flying as much, and to finding ways of kind of expressing our own commitment to environmentalism in the college. And the Hub, which is that great passive house building, which was opened just a couple of years ago on our campus, is one aspect of that. But I think that's been something that I've noticed really becoming more pronounced in the college's kind of mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, last year we created a new post on governing body. The governing body is the body of fellows who oversee the life of the college. We created a sustainability fellow. So one of our fellows, Dr. Sandy Byrne, who's an associate professor in English literature, she kindly stepped up to be the sustainability fellow to work with the students, alumni, staff, and all friends and members of the college to continually think about how we can be more environmentally sustainable. And yeah, Yasmin, you're right. I mean, hopefully that this COVID-19 crisis will segue into tackling the climate crisis.
Well, I'm trying to find silver linings as well, Jonathan. But that is one, I think, in the sense that the days of us sort of flying in for just for one conference as academics are probably no longer with us. But we mentioned part-time education, and obviously Kellogg has a mix of part-time and full-time, but we do have that historic route in part-time education, and there are lots of part-time students at the college. But you're also personally kind of committed to that and interested in that. I was thinking about the Commission for Part-Time Education, which for adult education, which you were secretary to. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I find it absolutely fascinating. It was educational to me, despite the fact that I'm committed to and know about part-time study through Kellogg, because I hadn't realised that during the First World War, the British Prime Minister Lloyd George established a ministry for reconstruction to think how on earth you reconstruct society, the economy, and so on after some devastation. Which rings a bit true today. And interestingly, possibly the biggest positive impact that ministry had was their Committee on Adult Education publishing a report on adult education in 1919, just after the First World War, of course, in the midst of the global pandemic, which killed a further 50 million people. And it was very forward-looking. A lot of the arguments, I think, are even truer today, because they said it's urgently important that there's education throughout one's lifetime. There's lifelong learning for adults. It's not just shouldn't just be for school children, then immediately after that at a university. It must be available throughout life. And they gave sort of four main reasons. Firstly, the fact that women in particular then weren't getting access to university education. You had to make sure that all parts of society had access. Secondly, they said there were big issues of the day that had to be debated by all, which meant everybody had to have access to education, not just of the facts, but also the ability to consider, discuss, and so on. And obviously they were thinking about the dangers of war. And now we've got the climate crisis as well, which you couldn't have a better example about why you need education to have proper discussions. Then they also said, even then, that there were new industries and new technologies emerging on the horizon and beyond the horizon, as yet unknown. So it's no good in terms of world of work just training workers for today's skills. What you need is a workforce with capabilities to be able to deal with new technologies as they emerge, which haven't yet been thought of, and think about how you get the best out of that. And obviously today with artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on, that's very, very clearly needed. And then finally, maybe most absent of all, it was a time when in Britain the electorate was being extended to give votes to certainly far more people, bigger segment of the population, and they argued you therefore had to make sure that all citizens had access to education, so all voters, the electorate, had access to education. Again, not just to understand the issues of the day, but to have the ability to weigh up evidence, think critically. And they said even then in 1919 to distinguish between, on the one hand, genuine political argument from, on the other hand, demagoguery. And unfortunately, that's still very, very important today, and I think will remain so for the foreseeable future.
Every single part of that seems to resonate in the present, I think. And what about your own research, Jonathan? I mean, can you tell us? I know you've been interested in all sorts of aspects of mutuals, also globalization. Can you just tell us a bit more about your own kind of research as an economist? Because I think those of us who aren't economists are sometimes kind of wonder what economists do and what it'd be interesting for people to know what your own interests are, I think.
Yes, well, you're right. I researched and just published a big Oxford University Press book on cooperatives, mutuals, and co-owned business. So mutuals, using that term widely to mean any company that's owned by people other than external shareholders, basically owned by their customers or their employees or the local community or some combination. And I'll tell you how I got interested. But I always hesitate to do this. It does involve football, which can sound quite a blokey thing to talk about. So I should point out from the beginning that the reason I got interested in this, got involved in this, was because of my wife. My wife was born and brought up in Manchester, and her dad's idea of helping with the childcare was to take her and her sister to the football to watch Manchester United every home game. So they grew up as fanatics. So it was a condition of marrying her that I had to become a Manchester United supporter. In fact, it was a bit, so I had to buy myself a season ticket, her a season ticket, and her dad a season ticket. And we went to every home game. And almost as soon as that started, Rupert Murdoch tried to buy the club for quite a corrupt purpose, you'll be shocked to hear, so that he could use their vote in the votes as to who should get the TV deals, so that his company would get it. So I got involved in the campaign to stop that. And it was quite interesting because it was a shareholder-owned company, but the supporters were all, for once in football, completely united that they didn't want this to happen, all the fanzines and so on. So they wrote to the board to ask for a meeting. And you might think that any company would be absolutely delighted with the opportunity to meet their customers and talk to their customers. But instead, they wrote back and said, no, we're not interested. We don't want to meet you. But it was a PLC, a shareholder-owned company. And a lot of supporters like me and Carolyn had bought shares when it was floated, just the cheapest option we could, the minimum number of shares, just so we could be co-owners. So we formed an organization called Shareholders United Against Murdoch. And I was elected chair of that. So I then wrote to the board and said, we're not requesting a meeting. We're actually requiring it because we are the owners of the company, and you, the board, are answerable to us. So they then had to meet with us, and I'm pleased to say that campaign was actually successful, and Murdoch was defeated. And that's what got me interested in organisations which are owned by their customers or their employees or the local communities, or some combination, which is often a much more appropriate way of organising the endeavour.
It's a fantastic story, and I think, it inspired a lot of other shareholders to take action as well, didn't it? I think it's a great example of action leading to research rather than the other way around. And do you and Carolyn still watch football? Do you still get to the football? Or because I know you like stand up and comedy and films. You seem to follow those things. But what do you do? You both work extraordinarily hard, but I wonder what you like doing in your free time.
Yeah, well, on the football, unfortunately, then the Glazers came and bought the club up, and we did campaign against that, but we were unsuccessful. So we got all our shares compulsorily purchased off us. So now we gave up our season tickets, and now we just watch it on television. No, but you're right. So we watch it on television, and there is the hardcore supporters split off and set up their own club, the FC United of Manchester, which we have been to once or twice, but no longer go to every home game. No, but you're right. No, we like comedy, movies, you name it.
Great. Well, I think I don't want to take up too much of this time because I'm sure other people have questions. So I'm just going to open it up to anybody in the chat or online who wants to ask the president anything about Kellogg or about your time at Kellogg, or just say hello and sort of join the conversation. So I'm wondering if anybody's going to venture a question there. Feel free to type something in the chat. Joe Malone, hi. Have a look. Okay, now they're coming in thick and fast. So I've got one here. Marie Harrison says, do you see any parallels between co-ops and Kellogg College?
Well, sort of in terms of engagement, because it's a good question actually as to why the college is called Kellogg, because it is after W.K. Kellogg, who was one of the two brothers who formed the Kellogg company, who make the cereals and so on. But he gave all his money back in the 1930s to the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, which is still a major foundation in the States. And at the time they gave the money to the college, it was their strap line was helping people to help themselves. That was their sort of mission in life, to give people the capability to try and help themselves and better themselves. And so they were attracted to Kellogg's commitment to lifelong learning, to part-time education, to broadening the University of Oxford out to audiences who otherwise wouldn't have been able to study at Oxford. And that's why they supported the college. So, and we like to think that we're the most egalitarian college, as well as the most international, the most interdisciplinary, the friendliest, and that goes back to the reason it's called Kellogg College, because of the W.K. Kellogg College Foundation having that commitment to a second chance, if you like.
There's a couple of questions coming in about good spaces within the college to connect with students and researchers of other disciplines, especially in these COVID times, and also how people can meet each other at Kellogg this year, because most of the Welcome Week events have been online and some have been cancelled. And I think it's a question about how people kind of get to meet and to circulate, which I guess we're all sort of struggling with, in the sense of wanting to all be together as a community, but also having to sort of follow very strictly the COVID guideline.
Yeah, it was a very good question, which we should really sort of throw open to everyone, but maybe you can send in your ideas subsequently, because generally how you sort of meet people wouldn't be at a big welcome event like this with 300 students or whatever. It would be the other events, the talks, seminars and so on, where typically there'll be 10 or a dozen people maybe, and so people all get to chat over a cup of tea before it starts, and then over a drink afterwards. And hopefully what we must try and do is make sure that we do have enough of those events going on continually during term, so you can join those in this sort of Teams environment where it can be genuinely interactive, and everyone can have their cameras on and you can all see each other and then have a discussion afterwards. So Yasmin, the senior tutor, and I will try and make sure that those events are happening on a regular basis, and that's how you will meet people. I mean, there's a question about how you should then keep in touch subsequently, beyond just physically in college, to the extent that's possible. And there maybe you might be able to do it yourself through social media and so on. But if you want us to think of ways we could facilitate that through the website and WhatsApp chat groups and so on, do let us know.
Yeah, and somebody else is asking how we can be effective members of the college community during these circumstances. And I think, it does raise a really major question, which is, I suppose in one sense, I want to reassure you that you are very much members of the Kellogg community from joining the moment you join the college, and you are members of that community. And at the moment it's a virtual community as much as a in-person one. But I think there will be kind of continued communication from the college, but also events online like this, but also open door events also, where people can kind of drop in events. So I think, and as soon as we can, we're going to put on more things where people can, who are on site, kind of come and have a cup of tea at a distance and sort of chat. But it's very, very challenging kind of circumstance. It's not the same as a normal start to an academic year. Somebody said, can we leave Facebook, Instagram in the chat so some of us can get connected? I don't see why not. I don't think there's any problem with that. And the MCR itself does have a Facebook group, which is run separately from sort of formal Kellogg website, there is an MCR Facebook group. So I think that's probably the best way to meet people socially through the college. Is there a way I can find out where Kellogg members are in Dubai or in any country, for example? That we may be able to meet as small groups and connect. That's interesting. I mean, there have been national groups, haven't there?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, that's normally in Oxford, that's sort of focused around alumni, and the university puts on alumni events, in every part of the world, and the colleges all participate in those events. But what's nice, being at Kellogg, is that all the other colleges is quite different. They're in Dubai or New York or Paris or wherever they are, and they're just talking to their alumni, their former students, and all their students are back in Oxford. Whereas for us, because most of our students are studying part-time and are actually living and working all around the world, wherever these events are, whether in Tokyo, Paris, whatever, there'll be alumni there, but there'll also be current students who happen to live and work in that area, maybe traveled a wee bit to get there. So it's a very good question. And so one way to do that is through our development and alumni relations office, because they've got all the details about where former students are all around the world. And so the great thing for us is we could organize a meeting in any area of the world, any city or big town in the world, and we'll be bound to get both some current students and lots of alumni.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying we're the most international college in Oxford in terms of the number of countries represented. So yeah, I think contact the development office if you have a particular interest in meeting either alumni or other students from your country. I think that's the best thing to do. And it is really interesting at Kellogg also how many of you will have really well developed and interesting professional careers, I'm sure. And that's one of the things that's most fascinating at Kellogg, is the network of people that you become part of. And so that can be a kind of virtual community as much as seeing people face to face. I think you would have a direct connection then with other people who are alumni, say from your course or from your country, who've also studied at Kellogg. Other questions? I think it's fair to say it is going to be a challenging year, but there's lots of things that are going to be happening in college and online. And I don't know if you want to say, Jonathan, how you think people should sort of make the most of being in Oxford over and their time as students from your experience.
Yeah, well, actually, the questions have been very encouraging because they've almost answered themselves. Because what I would say is make the most of your membership of the college to meet students from other courses. That's who you'll learn the most from and remain friends for life. I mean, even me, when I remember my first day as an undergraduate, even though I was on one course, the master of Balliol saying, do make sure you talk to the other students, that you'll learn more from them than anyone else. But in our college, and we're not only the most international, with students from 98 countries, but we're also the most interdisciplinary. Now, all colleges have got a range of disciplines, but the unique thing about Kellogg is we've got a large proportion of the students are studying degrees which are explicitly interdisciplinary themselves. So our senior tutor, Yasmin Khan, teaches on the Masters in Literature and Arts, which is explicitly interdisciplinary. Lots of students are doing the Masters in Sustainable Urban Development, which brings together engineering, economics, and so on. We've got a lot of students on evidence-based healthcare, which is partly medical, but also has social science elements, leadership, innovation, and so on. So if you talk to other students, even if you're not on one of those courses, you'll find a great openness to talk about your subject area across students. And then often students will be surprised to find out that they've learned interesting things from someone studying quite a different topic. So, and crucially, talk to other students and put on events yourself. If you talk to another student, you think it would be great to have a workshop on that or talk on that. Don't wait for us to put it on, just do it yourself. If you're not sure how to, then come and ask us and we can make sure there's, a socially distanced room and it's live streamed, hopefully, and so on. So do come to us if you want help in organising events. But generally, in any year, you know, most of the events on a day-to-day basis are put on by the students and their committee, the MCR, Middle Common Room. So that's to answer one of the other questions about how to get involved. Get in touch with the MCR and get involved in the MCR, and then stand for election to be one of the MCR officers. It's a big committee, about 20 or so. So there's plenty of different roles that people can take on.
Yeah, I hope you'll know. You might not know by now. MCR stands for Middle Common Room, but it's basically the committee that represents the student interests in the college. So do put yourself forward for that and get involved in different roles in the MCR. I think that's the best way to change things within the college or to put new things on. But we are grateful to Jonathan, to our president, for taking part in this session, and thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in different ways throughout the coming academic year. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.